Greetings, Brian Lombardi here, going through the notes for week 1 of the practice of the presence of God by Brother Lawrence of the Resurrection. So this week is mainly focused on the 4 conversations that were recorded by a local priest, Joseph de Beaufort, who was, again, not a Carmelite, but actually just went and sought out this learned old man and was able to, through 4 different conversations over about 16 months, go back and record what he had learned and put them into a very impactful summary of the teachings of Brother Lawrence. It's kind of interesting that later on, Joseph de Beaufort would also go and write a famous work on St. Vincent de Paul. A lot of us know St. Vincent de Paul from our local society. Also a French priest and theologian that he went and was actually well known for his works. Not so much this work, but for that work. So these 4 conversations highlight some key things. The first thing being the most obvious is that Brother Lawrence basically said, you get a lot closer to God if you just recognize that God is actually present, interiorly in us, and you go inside yourself and talk to him throughout the day in all your activities. He was constantly aware of God being present in everything he did. A lot of us, especially during Lent, try to, increase our prayer time and our devotions. One thing we can watch out for is that sometimes we're actually going through more of the thinking and less of the actual connection with the divine indwelling that's in us. He makes a very interesting conversation that thinking spoils everything, he said, which is kind of interesting. There is an adage that when you go to God, you don't really want to go to God from the outside in. When we're reading a book, we're bringing things up into our intellect, down into our soul. And he's actually advocating going the other way. Of actually, when you want to be with God, you go interiorly first, and you connect with God, and then let it come back up and be in your presence of your mind and your intellect. So, rather interesting. A lot of us, are so busy. I just got back from 5 days of watching my grandchildren, and I realize a lot of you with young children, from the moment they get up to the moment they go to bed, and then when you're so tired after they go to bed, you don't really have time to sit down and say, okay, I'm going to do a Bible study, or I'm going to read a notes of the saints, or read a book. It's not possible. And the beauty of this, especially during Lent, is he's basically telling us, actually, you get more out of just actually putting down the book and going to God and talking to him like you would a friend. So the presence of God in us, in our divine dwelling, allows us to do that. So really a key learning of this book for Lent. He also, in one of the chapters, goes through the fact that devotions basically are not the purpose of what we do. Again, so many of us bring up Lenten devotions that we think are going to get us deeper into goals. But basically, he says that, sanctification doesn't necessarily come from changing our activities, but actually being present with God during the activities. So think about that again. Times throughout the day, it might be beneficial to actually stop and just think about connecting with God before you start the next task, the next meeting, or even if you're going out for a walk, or if you're going to do the dishes, actually stopping and connecting with God and thanking him for that particular time of being in that moment. So very impactful conversations. I think this is something that will be fruitful in our our Lenten experience. And we'll keep checking in with you throughout the weeks, but those are my thoughts for week 1. Thank you.